There's different worldviews.
We grew up together. We were best friends.
You're spending way too much time on this. That's why parents hang around with other parents.
Yeah.
Being like an energy vampire.
I'm focusing more on people that feel my soul and like make me feel good on the inside.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the Confidant Podcast, here with my wife and my confidant, Chloe DiPietro Vargas. So this channel and this podcast is about real estate related topics in the South Florida, Miami area, as well as business, financial, health, fitness, wellness, mental health. We go through a barrage of different topics on this podcast, all relating back to working together and building businesses. So if you're interested in that type of content, or you yourself find yourself working with your significant other, whether that's your girlfriend, boyfriend, or spouse itself, and you want more advice or just seeing how other people are doing it, then you're in the right place. So if that's you, then do me a favor, hit that subscribe and like button. We have a list of topics that Chloe has prepared. I think this is the first time I'm hearing about it. So Chloe, why don't you hit us up with what is it that we're talking about today exactly?
Yeah, so today's topic, I know we just jumped off of an episode of just us and our marriage and how we started. Today's topic I thought was really interesting because I think we're sort of going through it in our life and just like chapter and changes going on is friends or foes. That's today's topic. So
That's
we can take it what it is.
We're
labeling it friends or foes. And so basically, I just want to just dive into a little bit and sort of ask you questions, and we can go back and forth about like our relationships and how they've created throughout the times and how they've changed. Because, you know, as we've stated in the previous episodes, like we grew up together, we were best friends, and we were really always leaned on each other. But we had so many different eras of friendships, right? Like, I don't know. I guess we can call them eras, right? Because that's what people consider them now. You're in like your friend era, your wife era, your girlfriend, or whatever it is. You're in an era, and so we went through different points in our lives and how do we feel that they fit at that point and where we're at today, right? Where we're at with our friendships and our personal relationships, even with clients on a professional level or other agents and our teams, like how we're managing that and the constant changes. Can you give me an example? It's so weird. And it's like, you don't really want to dive in too deep, but you should. Can you give me an example of a time where you probably held on to a relationship because you thought it served you well at that point in your life? For what you were doing?
Yeah, I think that this is a
tough topic.
This is a tough topic, but also it's an interesting topic for entrepreneurs. It's a very interesting topic because I feel that, and I don't just feel that, there is research and data that has shown that as you kind of mature as an entrepreneur and really just venture off in your own like realm, entrepreneurship is kind of a lonely road in many aspects. And it's really just a dying of your old self and renewing of your new self in this journey of trying to be better. Right?
Yeah.
You first think that you're trying to be better in business, and then you come to realize that you have to be better overall in general, just as like your growth as a person. And because that stuff is going to transcend into your business life and your personal life and your relationships. But that is a difficult process for a lot of people in your era or your aura or your circle, because as you grow, you yourself will either fall out of relationships, either to your own accord, you just grew out of them, or it makes people around you uncomfortable from one way or another. And they may not even be able to pinpoint exactly why. But what you will notice is relationships that you thought were going to be, I don't know, lifelong are not as maybe strong as you thought they were, or they've ran its course. And so I think that a lot of entrepreneurships could share that sentiment. Maybe I'm wrong. If you're an entrepreneur and you have not lost any friends or any relationships, or all your relationships have grown together, then let us know in the comment section. Yeah, that's what a blessing. But if you are an entrepreneur and this is happening to you, let us know. Am I right in this assumption? I believe so. I mean, from the entrepreneurs that I've spoken to, your circle does get smaller in a way. The fact that you and I got married, we have kids, we're focused on our businesses.
The whole process was really difficult, I would say. Like I like you're just touching up on is when you're dating, right? You go through the friends that are all dating. They're all dating. Everyone's in the same phase in their life. And then you're growing together, you're traveling together, you're doing a lot of things. And then, you know, someone ends up engaged. So then I think there's like a social pressure, right? Correct me if I'm wrong, for other people to get engaged. And then you're all going to weddings around the same time and then hopefully having kids at the same time. But certain people start feeling like they're staying behind. and you try to hold on to those kind of relationships, and it's nothing to their fault. I would say it more falls, and that's just the way life is, and you sort of grow apart. And I think you and I talk about it on our daily walks, that we're like, how does, how can we hold on to these relationships? They're sacred to us. But I do feel like God sort of opens up the road for you to meet new people that sort of fall in that life, in that part of the chapter that you're in that point in your life. And so for me, I think, I don't know about you, I know that you're the type of person that you become very emotionally involved in your friendships. Like we're very loyal to a fault. But I think for you, it's been really hard to sort of disconnect. Things are not good for you. Versus me, it's like I'll see the signs like 3 times, right? Like he'll tell me once, and by he, I mean God. He'll tell me once, and I'm like, okay, got it. Then the second time, I'm like, okay, well, maybe it's me. And then you try the second time, and no, you realize it's not you. And then you're like, okay, well, third time, it's going to be better because we're growing up, we're going through like a rough patch. And then you realize that certain individuals are just not good for you, and vice versa. You may not be good for somebody else, It's that disconnecting part that I think that you hold on to. I think that's like the difficult part for you. And that's something that I love and admire about you. But when is it too much? Like when do you think is the right time to sort of let go? Have you ever felt that it was just, okay, something told me, or did you, because I've personally felt like God's told me like this person's just not good for you mentally, physically, and there's proof behind that? Or have you been the kind of person that's just like, I'm just going to risk it and just like forget about it. You know what I mean? Like, okay, fine, whatever. They're not good for me. Like what have you found in those kind of relationships, and why do you think it steered you this way?
Yeah, I am a very loyal person, and I feel that myself, and I've kind of adapted a new mindset around relationships and friendships to be like more blunt about it. But I used to be a person who, like many people, were probably very prone to keeping on to relationships based on the duration of how long you've been friends with that person, based on the history. You're like, hey, this is a person who I've been friends with for X amount of years or this amount of time. And instead of the commonalities that you guys share now, because if you've been friends with somebody for 10, 20, 30 years or whatever, that version of you when you met that person is probably completely different. And to their credit, the person that you're friends with or no longer friends with, that version of them is completely different. So your commonality that you're sharing is how long we've known each other. But is that really a good reason to stay friends? Like if we once shared things, like I used to like watching sports, and I always tell people this, right? I used to love watching sports, and now I don't like watching sports. I mean, aside from UFC and a fight, it's a very low commitment. It comes like once a year or two times a year, a fight that I want to watch. I don't really like doing that, but there was friends that I would watch sports with. And so now if that was the tie and now I don't watch sports with them, I'm kind of like, what's the common trait aside from you and I just being friends for a long time?
Yeah.
So I think what I realized when, my mindset, my worldview is now completely different. I don't want to say you let go of those people, but inadvertently what you're doing is you're growing. And
I think you're sort of setting them free. And setting yourself free, essentially.
Yeah,
like you're not letting them go.
New people
like,
come into your life that share similar worldviews. And you have more commonalities with which you could provide more value. They could provide more value. Especially if you're a very busy person, it's kind of like I have limited time, and so I want the people that come into my life to pour into my life, and that I can pour into as well, as opposed to it just being like a energy vampire where you're like, man, I don't know. You have those relationships where you like go in and be like, that took a lot out of me, more than I got in return. And in a way, it's not.
You can feel the energy vampires. You're like, oh my God. Like the fact that you can sit on it and be like, this person or what they're saying doesn't make me feel good. And then you start questioning yourself and you're like, wait. By no means do we consider ourselves perfect human beings or specimens in this world. We have a lot of faults and a lot of things that we're constantly working on. But by doing that, we're also removing toxicity and negativity from our life. Again, I would like to really dedicate this episode to like all the people that we have lost in the past, the good, the bad, the ugly, because I do see that sometimes people don't really have bad intentions. I just feel that they've grown just like we have.
Yeah, I don't think it's that deep. I honestly don't think it's that deep. I just think people grow apart.
You grow apart, and some people don't know how to like just face it head on.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, it's just like, we're just not doing, like, we're not good together, whether it be a professional relationship, a personal relationship, a marriage. Like, you know, there's just a lot of toxicity, and sometimes people don't like, there's a lot of people, like, the more like with these elections coming around and stuff, they don't like to be at the forefront of anything. Like, they're just like, they don't want to put their opinion out there, but then they speak their opinion to other people. So it's just like, just put it out where it is and be like, I love you, but I can love you from afar. And I think that's like this mic.
Afar from like how you're talking from that to the mic.
Sorry, I know. It's just when I get like expressive, I like say back.
Yeah, no, I don't think it's that deep. I think people just grow apart, and then it is what it is. Like, you just move on, and your interests change and your focus change, and that's why parents hang around with other parents.
Yeah,
because it's easier to understand. Like, a lot of friendships are based off of like distance, or what's it called? Convenience is like the main word. Like, we're friends.
It's like, let's suffer together. What do we tell our friend, the Artevados? What do we tell them? We're like, let's suffer together. Like, let's just go to brunch and suffer. Let's just get through it. And like, kids are throwing tantrums. And we're like, it's cool. Like, we're together. We're together.
So there's that common trait where at a time, that's why, like, if you ever notice that you hang out with your single girls when you're single more than your coupled friends, and then when you have a couple, you hang out with them, you do more. It's out of convenience. It's easier to just do those things. And so, does it necessarily mean that somebody's bad or good? No, it's just you've grown, your life has changed, it's taking you in a different direction. And so therefore, if your direction is going this way and their direction is going that way, then sure. You and I are very focused on business and building and investing. We have, and then obviously we have our family, and it's like a full-time thing where we're balancing work and life, and really the word balance is the wrong word that I always say. It's like more of a flow. Like, we have rhythm within our work and life schedule. It leaves very little time allotted for any other activity, if you will. And so we make time for those things, and we try to make time for the people that are important in our life. But we only have a finite amount of that. And so it's just like, sometimes you're just kind of like, what's the most convenient? Like, do I need to...
Is it work to be around that person?
Yeah. And vice versa. Is it work for them to be around us? Like,
for sure.
If they're a single person and they're like, yo, I don't want to go to brunch with the 3-year-old kid crying and an iPad and making a show and like having to wait for them and all these things, and like, I can't have a conversation with you. It's like annoying. And I get that. And so it's just kind of like...
Stay home, everybody.
Right. But there's a lot of commonalities and overlap to this whole relationship thing when it comes to business, because I always think, and my other entrepreneur friends, I'm like, how many clients are you keeping around that you shouldn't be keeping around, right?
Well, you just learned that, right? At the Hermosi thing. Like, relationships established. Didn't you tell me about like when to know, maybe, like when to let go of a client? Well, like, I mean, when does it become too much, you know?
I think that the point that he was saying, which is a great point, is like, if you look at it at your business and you look at the top clients that you have, like the clients you love to serve, the clients that you love to speak to, the clients that you have a good time actually working with, and you're like, oh, those are like I have 10% of my clientele. And then you start thinking, well, what if that was 100% of my client list, right? So now you try to reverse engineer, like, how do I get this avatar of a client that's like my golden client, like the type of person I want to work with, the type of person that gets me, the tribe, like the culture, everything. And then, you know, they pay me this amount of money. They value my time. I value their time. It's like a great exchange. You're like, how do I go from 10 to 20 or 30% of that client base being 100% of that client base? And so what that means is you're pruning a lot of those people that probably shouldn't be on that list, right? Shouldn't be on that client list. But yeah, I mean, relationships in and of itself is difficult because they're people that you've cared about. But I think the worst is like when it's family, right? That it is like difficult. And we've gotten a lot of pushback from certain members of family. And, you know, not to say anything negative. It's just there's different worldviews and like the way that you and I live our life.
It's not for everybody.
It's not for everybody, and people would look at us. And I know that if you're in the entrepreneurship boat, you've probably gotten this. It's like you're like I get a lot. Like, you're too obsessed with business.
Yeah.
Like you're spending way too much time on this. And you know, ultimately, at the end of the day, if it's what we like to do, and I would be spending time on this on my free time, I like to read business books. Like, I like to listen to business podcasts. It's like that's what I enjoy. So like when I'm not working, I want to get better at working. So. But it's very difficult.
You're never going to check everyone's boxes, and that's not your purpose in life. Your purpose in life, I feel, is to live your truest, like, fulfilled self, and whatever God has paved out for you to be. I am a true believer of that. So when you look at yourself in the mirror, you're like, are you checking off all the boxes? Like, I know that I love using that vision that you and I had when we were really little. We've always said, like, we always knew we were going to amount to something great. We just didn't know we were going to do it together. So for us, is like, while we're getting there, like you said, there has been a lot of pushback. How do you feel like we've handled that pushback? And before I get to that question, I do feel that, when we're confronted with, oh, okay, well, why do you guys keep doing this and why do you keep doing that? I come out and I say, well, name a time it hasn't worked for us. I'll wait. Or when we're questioned, like, from anything that we do in our lives, and not just on a professional level, but on a personal level, it's like, do you think you should be making those purchases, or you think you should be traveling here? One question we always get asked is like, why isn't Harrison in school? Like, we're always getting this pushback from people. And it's, again, I never think it's from a bad place. I just think it's from a place where they're like, you start questioning your ability of doing things. You're like, well, then why am I not doing that? So let me just push this on them, my agenda. So for us, it's just taken a lot of work to sort of look on like the deep part of like the good in people, because society can paint someone that's throwing their oppositions at you as something negative. But I look at it as maybe they're processing something on their own. And you just got to just sit back and be like, okay, well, that's just not how we do it, right? This is what we've decided to do. Since you and I have been together, since we started a relationship, everything we've done to get to this point, we're really proud of. And we've learned. We might not have always been right, but we learn and we get better. So how have you handled it? Like, how can you say, like, with that opposition, what have you taken from it? And why do you feel so strongly about it? Because I know that we have our own... The way we view life is very different sometimes. Yeah. And so...
Well, I'm a contrarian by nature. So when people are running this way, I want to run the opposite direction. So
that's exciting.
It's exciting to me.
Because I don't think I'm a contrarian, but I do feel like I sort of go side by side with you. So I go with your craziness sometimes.
Yeah. So I always kind of feel like a badge of honor when people are like, you're doing this and that's not normal. Like, great. Yeah. I don't want to be normal, right? I don't want, normal just means being like fitting in with like the rest of the crowd. And I don't want to be. So that means like the rest of the crowd needs to look at me like I'm crazy. And so in a weird way, I kind of have that as a badge of honor. I think I've handled it much better now in my faith journey. Like, cause I honestly now work for an audience of one. That wasn't the case before.
Yeah.
But now I'm just like, I don't care, because like, honestly, I'm doing what I feel God has called me and set me out to do. I'm doing the best that I can with all the flaws that I have. And so I just try my best to just get better 1% per day. And I'm just in my own little world. Like it's kind of like, I don't really lift my head to compare myself to other people other than who I was yesterday or last year. And I'm constantly competing with myself, and I'm naturally competitive, to the point where when people tell me that, oh, you shouldn't do that or you can't do that, it fuels me. So I actually, in a weird way, have like this, like, like unhealthy / healthy, like outlook towards that resentment and that pushback from friends, family, strangers, whatever. I kind of need it in a weird way. Yeah. I like absolutely need you to tell me that this is bad, that you wouldn't do it, that I wouldn't do it that way, because I kind of have this view that I'm like, look, if I wouldn't trade places with you in the subject that you're giving me advice at, then I really don't need to take advice from you. So your advice
like, let me look.
is not merited nor taken. Like it's like someone who's single giving you marriage advice. It's like, my bro, you're not married. Okay. Now it's not to say that they don't have some great things, right?
Yeah.
That they can
for
offer
them, though.
But if I wouldn't trade places with you in that subject or in that area of life, then I probably am going to listen to what you have to say, because I think everybody has value that they can give, and probably take the golden nuggets out of it and just be like, all of this is like, whatever, this I can take out of it. Let me just apply this. But it's very hard for you to sit with somebody with a straight face and just be like, hey, I've been broke my whole life. Let me teach you how to get rich. You're like, not going to take I'm not going to take your investing tips, Bob.
If you're not Ramit.
Right, yeah, exactly. Right. But what's up? Like someone like Ramit, right? You would take that, because you would be like, you know, the way that he sees his financial worldview is like, I would love to have like that discipline and that's like peace of mind, if you will. with my finances and steward my finances better. And guess what? It's a skill set that I lack.
Yeah.
So I could learn that skill set from him. And if I could be better, then great. And then if I could pass that on, awesome. But like, if the guy was a financial advisor who had no budget, like no finances, wasn't doing well at life, was bankrupt, you'd probably be like, probably wouldn't listen to you. So I kind of feel that way. Even with family, it's just like one of those things like, dude, it's not for everybody for sure. And I don't expect it to be for you. But it hurts more with family because you do expect them to support you.
Yeah.
So even if they don't agree with you, they'd be like, look, I wouldn't do it like that, but
I think
I want you to win.
You bring up such a good point.
Of course.
One thing I have noticed is, and one thing your family has always told me, my family grew up very close. I mean, we're 1 out of 5 kids, right? But one thing I did always love about the Vargas clan was that in a room full of people and opponents or whatever it may be, negativity, positivity, if someone criticizes or blames or puts any fault to your family members, anyone in the family, they're going to defend you to the core in front of everybody. But behind closed doors, they're going to tell you if they feel you did something wrong. And I didn't understand that concept because I always felt like with us, like we would always call each other out on things. We're like, hey, what you're doing is wrong. But you should never say that in front of the opposition, whether you are wrong or you're right. In public, the public does not need to know any of that information.
It took us a long time to learn that because we weren't always like that.
We weren't.
And I looked at, we used to have a lot of spats and debates in front of other people. And I hated that version of myself.
Heavy, yeah.
Right. Because I was like,
we were also really young and dumb.
Yeah. Well,
like we really thought we knew everything.
Yeah, and then as you get older, you realize you don't know. And hopefully you do realize because there are still people who are stunted in high school. Like they are just 40, but mentally they're still 18, right? And so the things that they care about, it was like, I used to care about that like 20 years ago. I really don't care about that now. But yeah, absolutely. You expect that as you get older, you learn these things. And one of the things that you and I have learned is that like, if we have a disagreement, like, bro, in public, you and I are united. We're a team. Like, my girl's right. I'm going to defend her, and then in private,
I might not share my food with you, but
but in private, I'll be like, yo, what are you doing?
What are you doing?
We need to get better. Like, this cannot happen again. Right. Or you're going to tell me, like, you're going to call me out, but like,
I'll be like, I understand what you were saying here, but I didn't like how it made me feel. And then we dive a little bit into that, and we take that with what it is. But I do love that. I do want to dive into a little deeper on the business side. How have you decided? I know for me, if it takes time away from my child, I don't want it. You know what I mean? So I've decided in my professional career that my family has always come first, but I really like honor my time now more than ever. Like I have my mental space and like my personal space and then my family. And like a woman always divides themselves in like 10 parts. I don't know how we do it throughout the day, but it's manageable. As for some, I've decided that if it's a business trip or if it's a client or if it's like a person that like can't make a decision on a property or whatever it may be, or if it's a client that doesn't stop calling me for CPM and it's like a million times and it's like, no matter what, you're never going to make them happy or fulfilled. You're not the problem. They may have that problem and they don't want to see it, but they see you as the problem. I've decided not to give a lot of those people my attention anymore. Most of them, I would say like 99.9% of them. I'm just like, if it takes time away from Harrison, I don't want it. If it takes time away from my husband, I don't want it. So they can find somebody else that has that time. How do you handle those kind of clients or like business partnerships per se?
Well, I think we've been very blessed and fortunate to be more selective with the people that we work with. And now, of course.
But how did we handle it back then?
You didn't. You just took every single person that you had to, and then and you would just deal with every single personality, which was good. It served its purpose because you would learn to be more patient, to be more gracious, to it made
deal you stronger too.
Yeah, it made you stronger. You would deal with personalities that otherwise you would never have associated with had it not just been for the fact that you need their business, right? And ultimately, the clients that we service, I would love to feel like it's I wouldn't even say an even exchange. We always try to give them way more value than what they pay us, like 10 times more value than what they pay us. And so I'm always trying to think, and we're always looking at how can we give you more value, and not increase the price. Or at some point, if we do need to increase the price, then obviously we're just giving you more value on top of that. And you get to a point where at the beginning you just take everything and anything that comes, and then at some point when you have a little bit more success and you know you're a little smarter, a little wiser, you start being way more selective with your clients. You're like, this is gonna be a headache. Let me just not avoid that headache. And we've turned people down where we're just like,
we're just not a good fit. Like for both of us. Like now
it's not a good fit. Like it's just like what you are requiring. I don't think anybody could give you, to be honest. But like if price is like the main focus for you and everything needs to be like cheap, you know, like it's that triangle thing that we always talk about. Like you can have cheap, you can have fast, you can have good, but you have two of the three. You can't have all three, right? And so if you want good and fast, it's not going to be cheap. And we always try to think that we're good and like our team is good and fast. Like we are definitely not trying to race to the bottom. That's never been our business model. I don't think ever will be our business model. It's always
we don't need the scraps.
Yeah, and I always tell clients, I'm like, we're not cheap, we're expensive. Yeah. But here's the value that you're getting, because people spend money on expensive things all the time. Why? Because they perceive that what they're getting is worth more than what they're paying for it. So it's not even about the price, it's about the value. That's the discrepancy that we're trying to fill. And luckily we've been able to kind of build, I'm super proud of the client list that we've been able to build on both sides of the business, with our Vargas team agency side and the people of the properties that we sell, as well as our confidant property management side of the properties that we manage. Like we work with some incredible investors, some incredible people that are like really good friends with us now, that we constantly have lunch with. We're checking in on each other. We're seeing how their life is doing. Like we're following up on more than just business. And of course it starts as a business relationship, but ideally we've been working with people that we have an idea that it can foster into something more, because we treat our team as family, and we treat our clients as family. Like, yo, we're fighting for your property. We're fighting for your renovations. We're fighting with vendors. We're fighting with bad tenants. We're fighting with everything, because we care about your property and because we care about you. And I think the only way to do that is to work with people that you actually want to work with. And vice versa, they should want to work with us as well.
I think you bring up a good point. You work with people you only want to work with, but what if those people don't want to work with you? Like we're not like
then you don't work with them.
Or we created the Vargas team. So one thing that's really good about, and what I love about our team, is everyone is so different.
Oh yeah.
Like that's really why we started. Like we didn't intentionally create the Vargas team because we were like, oh, you know, we're so knowledgeable in real estate. No, it just organically happened, and they were like people that were friends, and they liked how we worked and what our core values were and our mission and everything that we bring to the table. And it just organically happened. What I love about our group and our team is that everyone's so different. Like you have people that are really strong-minded, and then you have other ones that are a little bit more passive, and then you have other ones that just speak Spanish or just speak English, and they're just, or that have, you know, we have like the Marios that love birds and photography and playing tennis and yeah, you know, but he's fun and he's likable. And then you have the Isabels who are calm and like super chill, and they're like, you know what, everything's gonna be okay. And you want someone like that on your corner.
Yeah, ultimately everything in business for the most part has already been done. Everything has already been said.
Yeah,
you know, we are talking about topics that probably on YouTube there's 50,000 other people who've literally been talking about the same thing. It all just goes into your delivery on how you say it, because other people who resonate with your like frequency of speaking and personality are going to register that better. So with the Vargas team, same thing. We have a bunch of realtors that work like in our team that are all so vastly different, that are able to suit personalities where I'm like, me and this person won't get along, but you and this person are going to hit it off, right? And it's not that they're any worse or I'm any better. It's just that
your frequency is the
our
same.
Frequency is different. Like, you know, there's certain things that I like to do or say, and how I like to act, and the banter that I have, and maybe the humor that I have rubs off people in the wrong way. And so they're like, this isn't it. I don't want to, or some people have even said to me that I've like, cause like right now I'm in t-shirt and what is it? What is this called again? Joggers. I always forget about it. T-shirt and joggers, but usually I'm always in a suit, and people have said that it feels a little stuffy, like it feels like a little corporate, right? And I'm like,
that's my style.
Yeah, that's my style. That's what I like to do. But then we have people who are like shirts and shorts, like that's what they like to do, right? So then they feel more at home, more at ease. So it's fine. Like as long as we're able to fit them and match them with the person, we're able to provide the best service and the most value, then it's all good.
What do you think about?
I didn't know this was an interview from you.
No, because I like
I thought
to.
this was a discussion.
No, then ask me questions. What do you think?
Let me ask you the next topic. What's the
Go
next?
for it.
All right, so let me ask you the last topic, and then we'll wrap this thing up. No, we've talked about everything, man.
No, I was gonna ask you, what do you think about working with friends and family?
I think it's great. For my family, it's not an issue because my family, everyone in my family is an entrepreneur. And the hilarious thing, and you and I have talked about it, was we all do something different. None of us are in the same industry. None of us are in the same
Rightfully
business.
so.
Right? Yeah, because I think like we all have strong personalities. We all want to run the show. It would be a nightmare. But my sister has her own business. My dad has her own business. My mom has her own business. I have my own business. My uncle has his own business. My other cousin has his own business. Like everybody in our family, when we have a family reunion, it's like 18 different businesses, 18 different industries.
It's a networker.
Right. It's a network. It's like literally a mastermind. But we all do business with each other. Like, you know, my uncle does my health insurance because he has a health insurance company. My other cousin, we buy our flowers for our wedding because he has a flower thing.
He's a
florist or a wholesaler for flowers. And they all do extremely well. They're all successful at it. And so we're all each other clients. They buy properties for me and I manage them. So like working with family and friends is not an issue. What I do say is an issue, and I will say this about my family, we pay the full freight. And I've always told you that.
Yes. We've always.
Yeah.
And I'm like that with my own family. Like, I'm like, what is it? What would you pay? And they're like, no, nothing. And I'm like, I've never understood that concept. Like, how do you show up somewhere for a service and then like that should be your number one supporter? And the fact that if they can't put $1 out or pay for what it is that costs it, how do you expect someone else to?
I get the sentiment, guys, of like,
it's sweet. Like, and then you acknowledge it. Thank you. But
I get the sentiment from friends who are like, yo, hook me up with this, right? But I as I've gotten old, and I used to be that guy, by the way. I'm like, yo, you do this, hook me up, whatever, and I'll hook you up whenever I can. But as I've gotten older, and maybe it's because I've been more jaded as running a business, I'm like, your friends and your family should be your number one supporters. We should be like, what's the full amount for me to pay? I'm going to pay that. Because if I can't support your business at the full amount without asking any discounts, then how am I really even supporting it? Because you're going to do the same work for me and make less money just because, and you're gonna have to take me.
And
because
our family's getting bigger and bigger. So how many discounts are you gonna be giving?
And just because, the world is gonna fight with you on prices or whatever. Everybody. I won't be that person. I'm gonna support you. So I try my best for any family and friend that's running a business. I'm always just like, yo, what's the full amount? I'm gonna pay for it, like that amount. Now, there's exceptions, of course, like. I have great friends that have their properties with me, for example. They give me a lot of properties. You get a discount because that's our business model. It's not like, we hook people up when it's a savvy business decision for them and for us. It's a win-win. I always look at it like win-wins. Like, obviously, those are the exceptions. You're going to get better value. You're going to get a discount. You're going to get this, right? Because that's a natural business decision we would be making. And obviously, if you're our friend, we definitely want to give you that. We want to promote that to you. But I'm just talking about just like for the mom and pop shops that are like, I'm a hairdresser. Like, can I get 50% off of my hair? And you're like, bro, I don't even make 50% margins. Like, I'm going to do your hair for free, essentially. And they're like, fine, whatever. You're my cousin. Like, I'll have to do it.
I never do. There's something I really wanted to point out. And I think I'm going to mention in the next podcast. I just heard it on Instagram on a reel that the Olsen twins use no is a full sentence. And so when I tell you no, that's all I need to say. So when someone asks me for like a discount, I'm like, no, like you just got to be okay with saying no. And I think we live in a society now that is just shunned upon to tell someone no. They take it as an insult or that you don't care. And it's not that I don't care. It's just, like I said, is it taking away? It's a valuable time, my resources. Like I have my own family I have to feed. Like no is a full sentence. So that's just something that I'm keeping in mind now. I'm using that as my new mantra. No, it's okay. Period.
So last thing I'll do, the final thoughts of today with this whole friend or foe thing. We've talked about friends. We've talked about family. We've talked about like maybe the outward pressure. But I do want to end this on a positive note. We've had so many new amazing people come into our lives.
Yes.
And I'm so grateful for those friendships and those relationships that we've been able to foster because God has removed certain people. He's made the way for new people in our life that you kind of have now. You're like, wow, I don't know how we weren't friends or weren't in each other's lives for much longer. And I have to be you have to be self-aware enough to know that the lives that you've left, the people, they're experiencing the same thing. Hopefully, right? Like we've left other people's lives and hopefully we made a way for somebody better. To resonate with what they need. And I think that that's the mature way of looking at it, because I don't think that there's definitely toxic people that you're like, thank God I got them out. So anybody who comes in is like going to be way better. But I feel like if you had a really, really good friend that you shared something with, it's kind of hard to replace that. But when you do have somebody come in that does do that and just like is able to kind of meet needs that probably you hadn't thought of, it's amazing when people pour into you. So shout out to you guys out there. Those who do you know who you are, we appreciate it. Hopefully you guys liked the video. Anyways, final thoughts for you, or are you good?
No, I just want to leave it on like, I definitely am focusing more on people that feel my soul and like make me feel good on the inside. Aside, like we do a lot of self-work, you and I, but you want to leave a room feeling happy, and not that like your conversations were filled about other people. You want to leave on a positive note and just fuel each other. Like I know that we're always asked like, hey, what are you guys doing? Like you always want to be talking about doing better instead of talking about others or doing, like pulling each other with some negativity. So that's just one thing I always like to keep on top of mind. Like, are they fueling your soul? And if they are, that's most likely the person for you. So yeah, that's my tidbit. I'm super excited I'm like used to looking at this camera, but that one's out. So
camera 2. So yeah, guys, thank you so much for tuning in, making it this far. If you found value from the content, you found value from the topics, and you want to hear more topics like this, or you think of a topic that we should talk about in the next video, let us know in the comment section or email Chloe or me. And we'd be happy to try to discuss if it's something that we find, that we can relate to, I guess. But with that said, guys, thank you for tuning in. See you next video. Bye. And God bless.